Albie Bergen is a true legend of sailing. From his first experiences at age 10 on Lake Macquarie in the VJ class, he has competed in and won most of the world's great ocean races, including the Sydney to Hobart. At age 81, he won the Brisbane to Solomon Islands race, then repeated the win the next 2 years running. Now 87, he says it's time to retire.
After 77 years of sailing, I feel I've had enough. And I have achieved all my goals, won all the races that I set out to win, and I can do no more.
Albie's scrapbooks are a treasure trove of sailing memories, from his first yacht, Vanessa, to getting his second yacht, Rival, over the dropover in Swansea Channel.
Well, if the boat can't stand that, I wouldn't take it to sea.
He's also taught hundreds of people the art of sailing.
And I didn't take any experienced hands with me. I just took anyone who wanted to go, and I would just give them a quick course on navigation before we left. So if anything ever happened to me, they'd be able to find their way home. And then off we'd go, and I'd teach them on the way around.
Albie recently sold his pride and joy, Alstar, and will now be spending more time ashore with his beloved wife. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
After Sydney suffered a shock loss yesterday, they were always going to be hard to beat today. However, Northern did keep pace early. Sydney was out to intimidate as well as dominate. With ball in hand, Jess Kane did it all himself. The centre's solo effort landed Sydney a 12-4 lead. Justin Poor split Northern before finding winger David Simmons to cross as Sydney went further ahead. Before half-time, Northern got the break it needed. Armed with plenty of possession, Matthew Lantry made the most of it to get his side back within reach. In the second half, it was all red. Simmons landed a double, before his wing partner, Charlon Tacky, stole another to really open things up. Racing towards the 40s, Sydney tried every trick in the book and almost every one came off. Halfback Brandon Crabb touching down. But this effort, from a kick restart, best summed up the second half for both sides. Attacking deep inside their own half, the ball bounced Sydney's way twice before Simmons got his hands on it for a try number 3 and a 58-8 win. All open sides now have a win and a loss for the tournament. The state team is selected after final matches tomorrow.
One of the longest barrels I've ever had for sure. I mean, I've had deeper ones. I wasn't like on the foam ball the whole time or anything, but it was so long. I was starting to get mesmerized in there. Like, can you believe this wave's not stopping?
There was movement at the station today as police officers set about moving into their new workplace. The new Waratah police station will accommodate up to 120 police officers. They'll move from cramped demountable buildings at Wallsend and Waratah.
Conditions at Wallsend are absolutely deplorable, and we needed to do something to have the working environment up to the standard that they should be working in.
The station is equipped with high-tech crime-fighting technology such as the live-scan fingerprinting machine and an intensive security system. Among the sections that will be stationed here, General Duty, Detectives, Highway Patrol, 6 Target Action Group members and anti-theft officers. Police knocking back concerns that response times will blow out with no active police station in the suburb of Wallsend.
I have undertaken a series of community consultation forums in the Wallsend area, and once the way that it's explained as to how police are actually deployed, and they're not sitting in a police station and waiting for the call, they're actually out and about in the cars.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
With 2 full squads involved at the weekend, Newcastle Rugby could hardly be stronger. However, it will mean little if the top side fails to bring home the Caldwell Cup.
Yeah, it's great to lead such a good bunch of guys and some talented guys in the side as well. So, yeah, we're looking to get it all together.
Warwick Crosby knows all about what it takes to win a title. The university fullback actually won with Newcastle 2 years ago before linking with the successful Central North side last season. Returning this year, he's after the hat-trick.
Definitely got the side, and with the coaching of David Croft and Paul Nixon, I'm sure we'll go really well. But Country Week's a hard weekend, it's a lot of quality football, and you really have to perform on the weekend.
2 games tonight at Newcastle Rugby League, with another 2 tomorrow, while Central hosts Cessnock on Sunday. It's representative time for the Lower Hunter Rugby League, with the Intercity Cup match at the Garden Stadium tomorrow. In NBN Soccer, Adamstown host Broadmeadow tomorrow with a further 3 matches on Sunday, but the game of the round is on Monday at Hamilton, with Olympic hosting ladder leaders Edgeworth. Last night, Hamilton scored an easy win against Lake Macquarie in a deferred match. Meanwhile, Newcastle United has extended today's deadline for Kiwi international Vaughan Coveney to decide on an offer to play with the club until after the weekend.
These 6 ladies are an unassuming mob. Known as the Merriwa Jumbucks, they've just become the world champions in the annual back-to-back International Wool Challenge, a title they're still a little sheepish about.
Very, very good feeling. Absolutely wonderful. I don't think we've come down to earth yet.
The Against the Clock challenge involves taking a sheep and using basic techniques, converting its fleece into a jumper.
So the sheep is blade shorn, the wool is spun with a manual spinning wheel rather than an electric, and then the garment is knitted using real knitting needles, not a mechanical ones.
Merriwa joins Morisset as the only Australian challenge winners. Their 5 hours, 42 minutes, 39 seconds puts them among the top 3 overall times, but 39 minutes shy of the Shetland Islands world record. Now the Jumbucks have the crown, improvement is their goal.
Well, I was going to say easy come, easy go, but it wasn't easy come, so maybe, no, not easy go either.
Merrywar's success is rumoured to have sparked world record holders the Shetland Islands to return to the competition after an absence of 6 years. It potentially sets the scene for a head-to-head challenge the Jumbucks would welcome. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The 10th Starstruck promises to be the best yet, and if the excitement of the performers is any indication, it's going to be one hell of a show. 3,500 school children have rehearsed for 11 months, putting together performances for the 3.5-hour spectacular. A dress rehearsal was staged this afternoon, bringing some fairly creative costumes that hardly needed explaining. Backstage was a chance to put in some of that last-minute practice. While some posed for a group shot, others were simply calming the old stage butterflies. The first show starts tonight at 7:30, and this is a glimpse of what to expect. And for the stars of the show, so far, so good.
I'm a bit nervous, but there's no one here, so it's okay.
Okay, what's the best part about Starstruck?
It's just really fun and just the dancing and seeing all the friends and everything. It's really good.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
He's a familiar sight at Newcastle University, as much in the lecture hall as the gym. With a science degree behind him and a PhD in chemistry on the way, Martin Kelly is also an elite athlete. In fact, he's Australia's best male in the 100 kilogram class, and mixing the two pursuits isn't easy.
Probably not as well as I should. The studies have tended to take a bit of a backseat the last 2 years.
But the hard work has paid off, selected for the Commonwealth Games, a meet he'll now compete at after winning his third national title at the weekend, his first though in 5 years.
It lifts confidence a lot. Coming into it, I'd had a couple of losses which I shouldn't have had, and this has just got me back on track.
Still ginger from competition, the 29-year-old will enjoy a month off before heading to Japan and Germany for final preparation ahead of Manchester. With 3 teams sharing the lead in Newcastle Rugby League, there are some crucial matches in this weekend's round, starting with the West Raymond Terrace match on Sunday. Cessnock and the Northern Blues will also be a highlight. Newcastle and Hunter Rugby sides will have the benefit of most representative players this weekend after the Country Championship, with the Waratahs Hamilton match the one to watch. One game in the NBN Soccer League tomorrow, with Premiers Olympic needing to beat Cessnock on Sunday to leapfrog the Hornets into second spot.
devastating really, because the vehicle was uninsured and through an injury I had last year and couldn't afford to pay it. So yeah, it set me back big time. Whether I continue will be a different story.
It's not surprising after a century to find a little wear and tear.
I've always, as a child, called it the Ratley Bridge, and my children call it the Ratley Bridge. Now my grandchildren call it the Ratley Bridge, only because it rattles.
And even with today's traffic, it had little trouble living up to its nickname. But rattly or not, the structure is the oldest remaining bridge in the state, built by E.M. de Burgh.
There's 9 bridges was built by the same gentleman. This one is one of the 9, and it is the oldest of the 9.
But the bridge's rattle may soon be a thing of the past. Cessnock Council is currently considering a number of options to repair it. Locals are also keen to ensure it's preserved, saying it's significant to the area and its people.
I've lived all around Australia. I've certainly lived in cities, and this is the friendliest, best community I've ever lived in. Deserves a nice old bridge.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Danielle Spencer's debut single has taken the rugged cliff tops of Lennox Head on the state's north coast into the living rooms of music lovers worldwide. The clip for her single Tickle Me was directed by Danielle's Oscar-winning boyfriend Russell Crowe, the latest chapter in a long relationship that began on the set of the film The Crossing.
It was a bit of a collaboration. His ideas, the actual images, but in terms of the mood of the clip and the kind of atmosphere that I wanted to get across, it was a bit of a collaboration. But he came up with some really good ideas for the actual scenes in the clip.
Danielle was in Newcastle today discussing her new album and admits she's not fazed by boyfriend Russell frequently stealing her limelight.
No, it doesn't annoy me. I understand the interest in it, so I kind of expect it and I understand it. It doesn't annoy me.
Gladiator Crowe has signalled an interest in directing more of Danielle's clips, possibly using more North Coast locations. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Getting the ball rolling were students from Callaghan College, Waratah, who have donated much-needed blankets. Also lending a helping hand is Hunter Ice Skating Stadium. Patrons are being urged to bring in blankets or a gold coin donation to the rink. The charity organisation is also hoping to raise $100,000 to fund its many programs.
We've got programs that support children with their education, families in crisis situations, and also help people get skills such as English skills and so on.
Meanwhile, services for homeless people were in the spotlight at an open day by Mission Australia. A number of different support services were brought together in the hope of improving communications. Over the past 2 years, the charity has helped 300 people find homes. However, Mission Australia is predicting more people will be homeless as the inner city becomes gentrified.
And I think we're beginning to see that process happening here in Newcastle.
And I think that there needs to be a coordinated effort by government, by the non-government sector and the private sector to talk about what are going to be the long-term solutions.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Novocastrians know all about location. On top of the purchase price, they've paid land rates based on property value. Newcastle councillors have finally decided to bite the bullet and overhaul the system. In a majority vote, land value will account for just 65% of the coming year's bill and see the introduction of a base rate to cover the remainder. Lord Mayor John Tate believes as land values continue to rise, the new system will provide equity.
And as those values bite, we need to have this base rate structure, and I'm pleased Council has moved to that.
While the general rating structure has been decided, Council will continue to investigate another residential rating issue. The City will ask the state government to consider a separate form of rating for strata title properties like units.
Units that are worth some millions of dollars, $1 million or a bit over or a bit under, pay a very small amount in rate revenue, and a lot of people see that as inequitable.
Also getting the green light from Council, the $80 million upgrade of the Garden City Shopping Centre. Work is scheduled to begin next year on the addition of 7 cinemas and increased retail and car parking space. Gary Blair, NBN News. The company has offered $25 million to the 190 workers sacked during the restructure of the Hunter Valley No. 1 and Mount Thorley mines in the late 1990s. However, 2 former tradesmen, members of the Manufacturing Workers Union, are arguing they want to be reinstated to their jobs. While Coal and Allied has offered some positions as part of the settlement, it doesn't include jobs for tradesmen. The sacked workers have until the end of this month to accept the company's offer.
It was a heartbreaking way for Robbie Middleby to end his season, missing the NSL semi-final series through injury. But confirmation of his debut Australian selection certainly has the midfielder cheering.
Finish off on that note at the end of the season after having a good season, it was very hard, so to have this has been good.
Back to full fitness, Middleby is well aware of the pressure on the side heading to New Zealand for the qualifiers. With Soccer Australia's troubled finances, the team must win through to the rich Confederations Cup, which will earn the governing body much needed funds.
Do or die situation for Soccer Australia by sending us over there. It's I think it's like a saviour mission for most of us guys to go over there and try to save Soccer Australia and get this cash flow for them.
Meanwhile, the NSL has confirmed next season will consist of a 26-round home and away series with the top 6 sides to then play a further 10 matches, culminating in a grand final. United's first home game will be against South Melbourne on September 22. And organisers of the Trans-Tasman Masters Games have called for expressions of interest for those who wish to participate in the first ever such event in Newcastle next year. A joint venture between the city and Auckland, the 41 sports to be contested in the inaugural competition were released today. Following the success of the Australian Masters Games, staged in the city last year, the Trans-Tasman version is expected to attract between 6,000 to 8,000 competitors to Newcastle for the 8-day competition in March 2003.
St Pius X was pumping at lunchtime today. The enthusiastic crowd of junior students helping local quartet Mickey Finn launch their fundraising tour to help the Leukaemia Foundation. Money which will go toward equipping a new home for leukaemia patients near Waratah's Mater Hospital.
So we're trying to raise funds to buy books and music and things like that for the kids to alleviate some of the stress.
Sponsorship from firms like Forjac's Dockyard helping the band with their sound system, and assistance from respected Newcastle recording engineer Mark Tinson. Hunter Valley schools are being promised a chance to dig deep.
We're going out into the Hunter, more into Cessnock sort of area, and we're trying to pretty much hit every school in the Hunter.
Across town, the audience were singing a more familiar tune to welcome the New South Wales Governor back to Newcastle. Marie Bashir was at City Hall today to present the Cancer Council Awards for outstanding contribution to the fight against the disease. Gary Blair, NBN News.
When local indoor soccer officials decided late last year to put a Northern New South Wales under-14 side together to contest the national titles, they could hardly have predicted a team thrown together in 2 weeks from outdoor players would finish second.
It was a challenge, it definitely was a challenge, but the boys do represent Newcastle, Port Stephens, and we just got them together and they put the work in for those 2 weeks.
Another pleasant surprise came more recently when 5 players were named for a 17-day tour of Canada. Sam Clifton, Jared Chapman, Benjamin Higgins, Michael Perezic and James Soldis head off in November to play provincial sides and to do a spot of sightseeing.
I haven't been there before, but my mum and dad have been there and they said it's very nice. Haven't been on a plane before, so I'm looking forward to it.
As is Michael, a towering keeper even at 14 and still growing.
You actually have to show your birth certificate or anything
Mate,
like that?
everywhere. I am 14.
In fact, the one who's been given the short straw is their coach George, who doesn't get to go.
Yeah, it's a bit of a, if I can use the word, bummer, but I'm just happy for the boys.
The result of Wednesday night's State of Origin encounter isn't the only disappointment for Knights fans. The game has robbed them of fielding their strongest team for this weekend's clash against South Sydney at Aussie Stadium. Tamana Tahu and Robbie Davis have both been ruled out, with Kurt Gidley and Justin Ryder filling their spots, while other Origin players like Steve Simpson and Danny Baderis will only play a limited role. But of more concern to coach Michael Hagan is a quadricep injury to captain Andrew Johns.
We don't want to subject him to another game if he needs to recover, given that he's played so much football, and we've got another big game next Friday against Parramatta. He's got a test coming up, so basically the decision will be up to him.
But the news isn't all bad. Front rower Matt Parsons passed a fitness test and will be taking the field despite a shoulder injury.
It's not 100%, but it's not going to be 100% for the rest of the year. But it's the stage where I think I can play and get through the game, so I'm going to have a run.
And he says he won't be using his former bunny status as motivation for the weekend's game.
I consider myself to be a Newcastle bloke now. I've been here for 3 years and was able to win a comp here, and I'm pretty much settled down in the town. And I love South, and I've got a soft spot for them, but I love where I am, mate, and I'd never leave this place.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
The club's leading goal scorer in his first season, Joel Griffiths, will have plenty of competition next season should he not head overseas. His brothers, Ryan and Adam, today signed on with the club for the next 2 years.
Got to make sure that, we don't stitch each other up on the field like we do at home all the time.
Described as an attacking midfielder, Ryan will complement coach Ian Crook's desire to build a more offensive style of play.
I want us to be more attack-minded than probably what we were last year.
Even defensive midfielder Steve Eagleton has been brought in with that in mind, with the pacey 25-year-old destined to cover plenty of ground should Newcastle adopt a three-strike attack. Signing on for 3 years, his reason for the move from Parramatta is simple.
I think they're a big chance of finals football. That's why I come, because I want to play finals football.
With a teenage keeper all but signed, the 4 additions will cap the club's off-season recruitment. It's good news for the club, which was still smiling after that multi-million-dollar pledge from the state government yesterday to help build a new stadium, construction of which will largely be carried out during soccer seasons.
They've certainly given the Knights and ourselves, and this is the Premier's Department, clear guarantees that both organisations will not be disadvantaged.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Lake Macquarie Police continue to hunt for a bandit who robbed the Windale Post Office today. The bandit produced a long-bladed kitchen knife and demanded cash. The weapon was later found discarded in the backyard of the local medical centre. Search of the area by the dog squad failed to find the bandit. He was described as being aged in his early 20s, 170 centimetres tall, with a medium build, dark short hair and scruffy appearance. The bandit was dressed in a red jacket, dark pants and a blue baseball cap. Belmont has one of Lake Macquarie's 8 remaining neighbourhood watch groups. Set up to aid community policing, the group has sparked a debate over just how much police-supplied information the watchers should be able to make available to the public. The group's local crime report in last August's newsletter sparked the controversy because it included too much detail about some incidents. It prompted police to ask that their information be used responsibly.
I think the concern was that some of our neighbourhood watch people felt that the police were hiding statistical information from them, and that certainly wasn't the case.
Residents this month have learnt why sexual assault, domestic violence, drug possession and firearm offences are now excluded from the crime report. Lake Macquarie Commander Alan Thompson says police want victims of crime to maintain their anonymity.
That's our major concern. We've got to make sure that victims are protected, that we comply with the Victim Charter of Rights and also the privacy legislation.
The decision not to list some offences does have the support of local MP Milton Orkopoulos. The member for Swansea believes the community wouldn't find it unreasonable when it protects the identity of children and sexual assault victims. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The Thunderbirds had one thing in mind, cutting off supply to prolific goalscorer Joe Morgan, but that's often harder than it sounds. At the other end, however, Sydney had little answer to the Thunderbirds' attack, with Adelaide opening a 5-goal break at the first quarter, which quickly grew. There was no doubting the commitment, but mass changes at half-time still couldn't stop the Thunderbirds. The Sandpipers had no trouble scoring. It was just they rarely got a chance to, with tough defence forcing some big plays. Newcastle's Lara Wellham doing what she could. As they drained Sydney of opportunities, Adelaide racked up 70 in an impressive win. Just as good, the crowd, almost 3,500 packed the entertainment centre in a big show of support for the code, which may base a team here for good.
I actually think that's a good idea, without looking at all the details. The Sydney Swifts certainly have a good following in Sydney. They've captured the market there, and Newcastle are avid sports followers from what I've heard, so it would be terrific if the Sandpipers were based here.
In the earlier State League match, Gosford maintained its unbeaten run in Division 5 against Charlestown. The Central Coast side unstoppable, winning 55-35 to open a 6-point lead on the rest of the field.
ADI is one of 3 companies shortlisted to supply our Navy's new patrol boats. They'll replace the ageing fleet of Fremantle-class vessels. ADI Newcastle has already proven its ability to deliver with the Mine Hunter project. Hunter community leaders have described the shortlisting as promising.
ADI has the runs on the board, the Hunter has the runs on the board, the skill base is here.
I mean, there's 1,000 straight up jobs, but the multiplier could be 2 or 3 times as much as that, so it would be magnificent for the Hunter.
With the Mine Hunter project drawing to a close, this latest defence contract would not only create thousands of new jobs, it would also help sustain existing positions at ADI. Newcastle Federal MP Sharon Grierson will spend a week on a patrol boat to help lobby for the contract. The preferred tenderer will be announced later this year.
What they have to do is now produce a proper tender, look at the full-on costing, agreements with the unions on wages, etc, etc.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. It was a stunning result. After just 4 months training, this team of robotic dogs, programmed by students at Newcastle University, came 3rd at the World's Robo Cup.
The team was so excited, we were jumping around.
Despite a slow start to their soccer careers at the Aussie Robo Cup earlier this year, the Newbots won 6 out of their 7 matches in Japan.
You'd have to say that our goalie performed immaculately. We only had something like 6 goals scored against us throughout the whole competition, and we scored 25 or so ourselves.
The team's number 3 world ranking means the Newbots now have automatic entry into next year's Robo Cup.
The tackle was legal enough. It was an accidental knee that levelled the Knights centre. Playing on until half-time before seeking medical attention, Gidley was later cleared of serious injury. But suffering ongoing pain, Gidley was back at a Newcastle hospital today. The news is much better for his centre partner Mark Hughes. He stuck his neck out to deny a South's try in an effort that looked worse than it felt, but only just.
When it was happening, it felt like it was in slow motion. I could feel it going and going and going. And I haven't seen it yet, but I hear it looks pretty bad. And when I was on the ground, I didn't feel real good either.
He was one of many Knights players happy to end a run of losses the team has suffered when Andrew Johns has been out, but is keen to welcome his captain back for Parramatta, along with Robbie O'Davis and Tamana Tahu, who all sat out Saturday's match.
Being first year playing in the football and that, it does take a toll on you, and it wears the body out a little bit. But now having the weekend off, I'm pretty fresh and looking forward to the Parramatta game.
Eels coach Brian Smith will be in Newcastle tomorrow and is very keen to sign John Morris. The utility player knocked back an offer from Canberra last week, with Parramatta and the Roosters left to fight it out for his services. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Practical support and friendship is what the Home Start visits are all about. Leanne is one of the scheme's volunteers. Each week she helps Karen Martin, who's a single mum with 6-month-old twins, Dylan and Mitchell, as well as 3 other children. It's a juggling act, to say the least, especially when the twins have needs all of their own.
They don't do anything at the same time. One wakes up and one goes to sleep, so it's pretty constant. I can't just duck downstairs and hang out some washing.
The Martin family is one of the first in the area to benefit from Home Start since it was extended to Maitland and Singleton. It's now searching for more recruits.
So we are calling upon parents themselves out there in the community who know what it's like to be under stress in their parenting role and might want to come along and support other families.
And as a mother herself, Leanne is well aware of the vital service Home Start provides.
The fact that I'm actually helping somebody that actually needs help is absolutely great. And I mean, who wouldn't be friends with you?
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. The families of Leanne Goodall, Robin Hickey and Amanda Robinson returned to Toronto Court today to hear further evidence from Robin Hickey's next-door neighbour, psychiatric patient Jeffrey Armstrong. When questioning Mr Armstrong, barrister for the families Robert Kavanagh told the court, "Evidence suggests you said I hit Robin over the head and disposed of her body." When later asked why he had expressed very hostile ideas towards a girl Robin while being treated at Morisset Hospital, Armstrong replied, "It could have been my first girlfriend, Robin Green, who dumped me." Detective Senior Constable Stephen Morton also gave evidence about the further investigations undertaken by Strikeforce Fenwick since February this year. Detective Morton told the court further interviews have been conducted with friends of the girls. There's been more inquiries made into Ivan Malat's link with the case, and bus drivers who were operating in the area in 1979 have also been interviewed. He also said a further canvass had been carried out around Swansea, interviewing current residents and those who lived there in the late 70s. After 8 weeks of evidence, Coroner John Abernathy said he will release his findings tomorrow. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Despite news of Bill Harrigan's sacking after that performance last Friday night still being fresh, Michael Hagan preferred to talk more about the future than the past. He did offer some surprise, but could see the league's point.
I think the number of people in the bin was probably a bit harsh in the assessment of the game.
With 4 nights on test duty and others in rehab and unable to train until later in the week, there is little the coach can do but wait and see what his team will eventually look like. Newcastle's Kangaroos are named to play against Canberra on Sunday, with 4 players on standby in case of injury. But even then, the rep players may still not play.
If they feel physically and mentally like playing, we'll encourage them to do that. But if they're in any shape not keen, well then we'll give them a spell.
It makes you wonder just how Andrew Johns keeps backing up. After a short off-season break, his year began with the World Cup Challenge back in January.
He's had a full-on commitment to the game since then. It's now July, and he's playing a test for Australia at halfback and captain. So
history certainly doesn't favour Newcastle. The Knights have won just once in the nation's capital, and that was last year. After a bad start to their Australian Rugby Shield campaign, the Country Cockatoos have stormed into second place after beating Queensland Country last weekend. A win tomorrow against Melbourne and a home semi-final is assured. Newcastle is well represented, with 6 players in the lineup for tomorrow night's match, including University's Marty Lasua and Wanderers' Matt Brown, while Maitland flanker Darren Demick has been one of the Cockatoos' best. Nathan Croft, meanwhile, continues his good form that included a record 5-try haul against Darwin.
Mate, always trying to score a couple of tries. It's always good fun. Just happy with the boys inside me. They put me in the holes and just hopefully it keeps on coming.
Closer to home, and Uni will be doing it tough to beat Wanderers in tomorrow's round of Newcastle and Hunter Rugby. Several of them are backing up from a successful Eastern Uni Games campaign played during the week.
The 13-metre trawler Arthur Charles was well and truly aground on Blacksmith's Beach this morning. Its owner's skipper guided his craft out of Newcastle Harbour at dusk yesterday, like he's done for almost 20 years, placing the trawler on autopilot and tending the nets alone. But despite the near-perfect conditions and calm sea, Van or Pam would not return to the co-op.
And sometime during the night, we haven't established when, he's obviously been caught in the large winch that hauls the nets in. And he's been caught by his arm and leg and rotated over a number of times, and he's deceased. Fishermen found him this morning on the beach where his boat was washed up at about 6 o'clock.
Van's wife and family gathered at the beach to see the wreck firsthand. They are tonight struggling to understand how such an experienced skipper could have been caught up in his own machinery.
Pretty big shock to us this morning. I didn't sort of really know what was happening, and his wife doesn't really. She sort of still come to terms with it.
It's unclear if the skipper was licensed to operate the boat alone, but fishermen say it's common practice to keep costs down. As a mark of respect, most of Newcastle's fishing fleet will tonight remain tied up at the Co-op wharf. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Weekend trips to wineries have been a popular getaway option for some time, so it's little surprise the wine tourism industry is now worth $353 million to New South Wales. A study released today at the Australian Wine Centre in Sydney found that tourism was also paramount to the survival of many smaller wineries, with 4 million visitors spending $93 million at the 210 cellar doors around the state last year.
For example, the major wine companies in this country account for about 70% of all production and sales, so tourism is going to be very important to the smaller wineries that make up the other 30% of the industry.
The Hunter proved to be the most popular wine destination, predominantly because of its proximity to Sydney. The study found that 70% of tourists were from New South Wales, 22% from interstate and 8% from overseas. There's now plans afoot to continue the cash-in by creating a state wine trail that would incorporate wineries at Port Macquarie and Tamworth, as well as those in the Hunter and Riverina.
And I think there's a great opportunity here to tie up industry development, exports of wine and tourism.
Colin Robinson, NBN News. More than 100 students from St Peter's campus of All Saints College Maitland have been preparing for the Rock of Stedford since the start of the school year. But unlike some schools they'll compete against, almost all of the help has come from either family or the community.
Instead of the school running it, it's more the kids. A lot of the kids are involved. A lot of homes are involved, like families. There's a lot of families that do it, so I think in a way it's a little bit more special, if anything.
Today the crew had a dress rehearsal for their performance titled Behind the Mask, which is set in Brazil. The school, which has had success in previous years, hopes to make the grand finals in Sydney.
They're one of the nation's most popular marsupials, but since 1990 their numbers have been seriously declining in Port Stephens. The new koala plan of management addresses the animal's biggest hazards, including human population growth and the loss of habitat.
If the koala hasn't got a place to live, then there is no koala left anymore.
The plan recommends 132 actions, including access tunnels under main roads, warning signs at black spot areas and white surfacing on the side of roads so koalas stand out. Like motorists, dog owners should also be aware of the plan, as should those wanting to develop in the Shire.
There are some sorts of developments that will be not permitted. That means that any developments that are approved on this private land will be koala compatible.
And while the state government has formally approved the plan, its rate-pegging policy means council has only limited funds this year to ensure the plan is implemented. But despite being out of pocket, council will investigate increasing ecotourism to capitalise on the cuddly creatures.